Okay, here we are, All Sports Tucson, a high school preview show covering all sports. I'm Andy Morales, my brother Javier Morales, Troy Hutchison. And today we're going to be focusing on football. And first we're going to go over the rankings that were just released by the AIA and Max Preps a couple days ago. And it's interesting, the Open Division obviously is the top 8 teams from 6A, 5A, and 4A. We have 2 Southern Arizona teams in South Point, came in second. And a shocker to a lot of people in the state was Tucson Saguaro coming in 7th, and Scottsdale Saguaro, which has been the dominant team, 11 champions I think since 2006, was left out because of the way the formula works. But they're still 5 weeks left in the season. Do you have any thoughts on the Open Division?
Well, like you said, it's the first rankings, and you could probably take them and toss them in the trash because 5 games remaining. A lot's going to happen. Scottsdale Saguaro, they're going to be there at the end of the year. Saguaro, though, we were kind of talking about Tucson Saguaro. We were kind of talking about that before the show tonight, how impressive it is with Scott McKee there. You lose all that talent from last year. Now you're sitting at 5-0 and with injuries. It's one hell of a coaching job.
Yeah, he's definitely, we're going to get into a little later, definitely can Coach of the Year with that, especially with Isaiah Davis out. But number 7, he may drop out, but he may come back in because he hasn't game with CDO. Obviously, they're playing South Point Saturday. So, do you have any thoughts about the Open Division?
Yeah, I agree a lot with that. I think Scottsdale Saguaro I was surprised they were ranked as low as they were, but they're gonna, by the end of the year, they're gonna go up there. And CDO is 11th, right on the outside looking in. The 4A Keno division is one of the best in the state with CDO and South Point and Saguaro. I don't see any of those other 2 touching South Point, but in talking to Scott McKee yesterday, he mentioned that Saguaro and CDO have that chance to get in that top 8, and he wants that top 8. You would think that going to a 4A state playoffs and be one of the top seeds and get the 4A state championship, but they're still looking at making that top 8, perhaps pulling a surprise against South Point. It'd be a big upset, but he's looking forward to that. Also, that Saguaro CDO matchup because those are 2 great teams as well.
Yeah, and obviously there's still an open, but there's still rankings for each conference, and Tucson High is probably too far out to make the 6A playoffs, but they can still win the 6A Metro, which would be great for Justin Hargraves. And then 5A, where we have Buena, Nogales, Cienega, Iron Ridge on the outside, depending on how many teams get sucked into the Open Division, we'll tell how many Southern Arizona teams. But 5A has been very, I hate to say it, but down the first half of the year for Southern Arizona. No team has really said, hey, we're the team. Obviously, people are pulling for Cienega or thinking Cienega's going to take that, but Buena has been the team so far. Nogales 4-1. Do you have any thoughts on the 5A? Do you want to?
I think a lot of it has to deal with new coaches at new places, familiar faces at new places. Mountain View, you have Matt Johnson there, so you're rebuilding there a little bit. Ironwood Ridge, you lost Matt Johnson. James Hardy Jr. is coming in, and he's done a decent job, but it takes time to build your foundation, your own foundation. And for Cienega, they lost a lot from last season, and it's a little bit, I don't want to say of a rebuild, but a retooling, and you got to work through that. So they had those 2 tough games against highly rated teams, and since then they played really well. But those 2 early games might hurt them later on in the season.
The Cienega schedule looked good on paper, but it turned out to be very difficult, especially with Centennial on that schedule. Do you have any thoughts on the 5A?
Cienega is playing Sunnyside this week. Sunnyside's coach, Glenn Posey, is going to be out, so that's another factor that's going against Sunnyside. He was kicked out of last week's game for being on the field too much. So Sunnyside's at home. It's their 4th home game in a row, and they've come up really close on each of their games. I mean, they only lost to Saguaro by 11 points last week. They came a point away from Pueblo. Those 2 teams combined are 10-1. So Cienega is going in there, it's not going to be easy for them. So Sunnyside has athletes. It's going to affect Sunnyside to a degree that Posey's not there. But I think after this game, then the only other really tough game for Cienega is Buena at home. They get to play them at home this year. So Cienega is looking for a run, and I think that might be Cienega and Buena are the two Southern Arizona's best hopes coming out of 5A.
And then 4A, we get this really quickly, obviously. If South Point doesn't make the open division, they're the favorites for 4A. And Tucson Saguaro, Canyon del Oro, Walden Grove, Pueblo's in the mix. And then whoever wins that region is going to be in the playoffs. Probably Walden Grove or Pueblo. Amphi has a shot at that also. Foothills, Kevin Foothills is probably hoping both Scottsdale Saguaro and South Point gets pulled into the open division, because that'll open up 2 spots, because every team moves up. And then 3A, Sabino, it's a lock for Southern Arizona. 2A, Bisbee, Benson, Santa Cruz is very, very good team. And 1A, we go down to Babakaviri and Alton Sells. A very good team. Last year, Arizona was shut out in the 1A. We did not have a team in the playoffs. But the rankings, as Troy said, they're going to change every week. And there's Mr. David Kelly coming in. And he's going to be joining us a little bit later. And then let's talk about who we think at this point, 5 games. Some teams have played 6 games. 5 games in the year, who do you think the player of the year and the coach of the year, and then I'll give my thoughts after you guys give input on that.
Well, for player of the year, I think, we've all seen Bijan, and I'm going to put him out of this list and look at other guys besides Bijan. And one name that comes to mind because of the situation at CDO, Galvin Davis has had an amazing year filling in for Stevie Rocker. You're put in that position, you're the second string running back, and they keep on rolling. I think they're 5-0, 4-0 at this point in the season. He's right up there. Bourbon from, help me out here. From Buena, Giovanni Bourbon. 600 yards passing and can run the ball. He's a hell of an athlete. And then AJ Skaggs over at Sabino. The picks are a little bit high, but he's kept his team in games, and they're going on a run right now after losing to his Saguaro, kind of like what they did last year.
Bijan's going to be he should be the state player of the year, in my opinion. I know they have a lot of top college prospects in Phoenix area, but he should be the state player of the year the way he's producing. He has almost 1,000 yards in 4 games. He's averaging 25.5 yards a carry. I saw him last week, and the thing about him, he's such a great talent, but there's nobody on defense that matches up to his physicality. So how are they going to tackle him? And he has the speed and he has the moves. It's impossible to bring him down. So if a team stops you for less than 10-yard game, that's a victory. And he should be the state player of the year. But as far as the top coach right now, I would say Dustin Peace at CDO, 5-0. They've had Rocker out. They've had some other injuries. He just keeps on doing it every year. His record is phenomenal. So I would give him right now the midpoint of the season coach of the year, especially in that 4A, that competitive 4A class. 5A, you can choose from Giovanni Bourbon, the Buena quarterback. He's also now has a couple of interceptions to go with being a heck of a passer. As a defensive back, he's got 2 interceptions, so he's one of the Southern Arizona leaders. So he's leading on both ends. And Preston Silvas at Rincon, he's scored 94 points. He's one of the top 4 or 5 scorers in the city. He's got over 700 yards rushing. He had 284 last week against Palo Verde. They're playing tonight against Desert View. He might have another good game. And then 4A, we're going to have Walden Grove here. We're going to have Alex Lopez. He passed for over 300 yards last week. He's a heck of a talent. 3A, I think, and I like your pick for Skaggs, but Diego Armijo at Sabino, top 10 receiver, one of the top 2-3 interception guys in Southern Arizona. 2A, none of people know about 2A or 1A, but 2A, there's a kid named Daniel Lopez at Bisbee, and he leads the Southern Arizona in receiving, and he leads them in interceptions. So he's a heck of a talent. And then 1A quarterback at St. David, Logan Davis, he's completing like 70% of his passes. He's passed for almost 1,100 yards. People will say 1A, eight-player football, but he's putting up the big numbers with that competition, so he deserves recognition. So that would be my midpoint players of the year in those different classes.
Yeah, for me, I agree with everything I was saying. Obviously, we have to look at some defenders because their stats come in so late. They get overlooked a lot. Usually, they don't come until Tuesday or Wednesday. You mentioned Diego Armijo and Jordan Lopez at Walden Grove, along with Barbone at Buena, are just as good on defense as they are on offense. And incredible talent. Charlie Reitzman at South Point, and he gets lost in the mix with all those linebackers over there that are each going to wind up with 100-yard tackles by the end of the year. But he's a great stopper over there. So obviously Bijan was a state player of the year. He was the Ed Dougherty, and we have the only vote. All Sports Tucson has the only, at this moment, the only Southerners vote for that, and I think our vote helped push him over the edge. But it's going to be clear that he's going to be the state player of the year again. And he's not just doing it against Tucson teams. He's done really well against Scottsdale Saguaro, even though they've lost those games. They've been unable to stop him. Now, switching gears, let's quickly go through game. There's a game tonight. Obviously, Desert View's playing at Rincon. Rincon going for a 4-2 record since 2012. So you mentioned Preston Silvas. And Giovanni Barbone made past 5,000 yards against career passing against Miranda. I think only 8 people in Southern Arizona have done that. Obviously, Rhett Rodriguez is the best. It's hard for people to put their mind around that, but Rhett Rodriguez is the best quarterback Southern Arizona has ever seen, and Giovanni Barbone is entering that elite group. And then Cienega Sunnyside, is Cienega going to take control of that? You mentioned Posey's out, not because of any altercations, but because of the rule that last year they instigated. If you go on the field, you get a warning. If you go off field again, you're tossed. And some districts deal with that with 2-game suspension, some with 1. So for me personally, a suspension because of that, it should be a 1 game. And anytime you guys want, and then Iron Ridge, Nogales, is Nogales for real? Is Iron Ridge gonna step up? And then obviously South Point, Saguaro. McKee is going for his 80th win. We talked to his father, Larry McKee, which is a great guy. He looks like he can still play. The last time I talked to him, and I mentioned Charlie Reitzman. It has 3 interceptions, but also Bijan, 7 yards away from 1,000, 85 from setting the big school record. Something like 1,600 from setting the state record. He's close to setting 12 touchdowns from breaking, who's the receiver for the Cardinals? Christian Kirk's Arizona record for touchdowns. He's the real deal. And it's rare in our lifetime that we got to see players like Kadeem Carey, David Adams, Vance Johnson, and Fred Sims, the Bacon brothers, which I think I missed them. I don't think I ever actually saw them play. And now Bijan Robinson. You just want to talk? Finally got to see him 2 weeks ago. Tell me what you thought about seeing Bijan up close.
Well, I saw him last year, in the Scottsdale Saguaro game. They got blown out in that game, but I think he still rushed for 151 yards. So, it just goes to show the talent. If you look here at the stats, 993 yards on just 39 carries. You're breaking 25-yard runs almost every single time. It's impressive. When you look at them practicing, you can tell he's just different. He's bigger, stronger, faster, and you don't see many players like that, not only in Tucson, but in Arizona as a whole, because, this guy is a different animal. And he also is a great receiver, too. I think when we were there, for the Cactus game, I believe. He has a 39-yard touchdown reception. So he does it in multiple ways, and he's a good run blocker. Usually you look at a running back, they're going to be weak pass blockers. I meant to say pass blocker, but weak pass blockers, and he's not that. He's a big physical guy. So I'm just blown away at his overall talent, not only running the ball, pass blocking, receiving. He can hurt you in multiple ways.
Yeah, he could become more of a receiver out of the backfield, but they have so much talent. They have Cordero. They have a lot of guys that can fit that role. He in space, give him the ball in space, who's going to tackle him? So I'm sure that's something that South Point could still use. They haven't used him a lot as a receiver out of the backfield. I was looking forward to, we're all going to be at the game there tomorrow, South Point, Saguaro. I was looking forward to Isaiah Davis and Bijan being on the same field. Unfortunately, Isaiah Davis is out with an ankle injury. I went to the practice yesterday. He didn't practice. He's a big, lean kid, Isaiah Davis. They do have Trevion Watkins, who has been rushing for more than 150 yards in Isaiah's absence, but he's more like a small running back that shoots through the holes and gets like 10, 15 chunks of yards. But just to talk about Bijan, is last week when they played Tucson High, the Texas coach was there, Tom Herman, and the running back coach there, Drake is the last name. He put on a show for them. I heard some rumblings about that he might decommit from Texas, so that's why they were there. And I talked to him about that, and he said that's not the case. That he gets along with that coaching staff really well. They're like family to him, and they spent like most of the time in the stands talking to his mom and his family. So he's very grounded right now, and he's determined. He and Lathan are two of a kind, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do tomorrow and so forth in the game, how those guys lead South Point to probably an undefeated season it's not going to be close.
Yeah, to me, Bijan looks like he put on 40 more pounds of muscle. And, and I've known his grandfather, Cleo Robinson, since I was 17, so I don't want to say what decade that is, but I think the Beatles were still probably together. But, no, Wings was together probably. But, he takes after Cleo Robinson. If you know Cleo, he's very respectful. And Bijan is a great man. He's not a boy anymore, in my eyes. He's a great man. And that's just going to be, and the Bourget brothers are available. We talked about Rocker being available. Davis is not available. And, so it's going to be interesting to see who all can keep up with South Point in that game.
And I was just thinking about this, and you've covered high school football for a long time. When's the last time you've seen a team in Tucson where you have Bijan, you have Miller, you have Fina, and then you have Ransom? The four guys that are going to elite Division I schools.
Well, South Point has had guys like that before, but not now Power 5. Power 5 would have to be 1982 with the Sunnyside, with John Horton, Jerry Beasley, and David Adams all going to U of A. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. It could have happened this year if we didn't have the Ret Rod difficulty. Who was going to be the coach at U of A, because that was frankly in the wheelhouse of that recruiting. We could have had 4 or 5 South Point kids playing at U of A. But, I had a feeling that those kids weren't going to go to U of A anyway. And to me, that's their dream. I have a nephew playing at Ohio State. I mean, I'd play at Ohio State if they let me. So anyway, Amphi and Palo Verde. Amphi needs to keep pace with Pueblo and Walden Grove. So it's a very important game for them. And then we're going to talk about Walden Grove a little bit later, but they're 4-1. Rio Rico beat them once, and that was when Walden Grove was just starting out. CDO Catalina Foothills. Catalina Foothills pulled up a big, what a lot of people think, upset over Pueblo last week. They have Will Parker. Will Parker just committed to Colgate. He has a 4.26 GPA. So he's winning it in the classroom and on the field. Of course, his dad is Glenn Parker, and His sisters have won multiple state championships playing soccer at Foothills. Will Parker is also an all-state baseball player. So I don't remember if you covered Glenn. Can you talk about that legacy?
Yeah, and you guys have both seen Will Parker play football, right? He's, to me, I thought he was at least a Mountain West type player. His physicality, his makeup, the way he's aggressive. I could see him play for like a Colorado State or Air Force, UNLV. And then those guys are just like a step below Pac-12. So for him to go to Colgate, I expect that he's just going to have a great career there. He's, like you said, he's very smart. I was impressed by just the way he plays aggressively, and he sticks out on the field because of that. Very fierce tackler. He's also on the offensive end too. He does a good job coming out of the backfield and tight end. So I would suspect that by the time he's a junior, he's going to be like one of those all Ivy League type players, without any question.
And I got to see him in the Catalina Foothill game, and they ended up losing that game, but it was a really close game because they were able to stall Sabino's offense. And one of the things that impressed me about him, at least on the field, is he was, you heard his voice from the other sideline. He was monstrative in terms of not commanding respect, but in terms of leadership, getting guys in the right position, offense, defense, communicating with the offensive line. And you don't see a lot of players, especially at the high school level, do that. They almost have to be forced to do that, but for him it came naturally.
I don't know if that's genetics, but yeah, he could probably be a coach later on. And he told me he wants to play baseball also. So, you know, to have that high of a GPA and still devote so much time to the field, you know, that's incredible in itself. So there's a lot of side things in that CDO Foothills game, and CDO looking to go 6-0 since the Kadeem Carey days. So, you know, it's just crazy that's all happened in the last decade. And then Sahuarita Safford, big game for Sahuarita, you know, to get back in the playoff hunt. And then we looked at 2A, one of the biggest games in the state is Santa Cruz 5-1, at Phoenix Christian 5-1. And that's one of the biggest games in the state right now, but it's being shadowed over by the bigger schools. But Santa Cruz, I believe, has like 7 kids playing the NFL. So that's a football town for a town of 16,000. You know, to have, and they all played at ASU, but they still produce a lot. And Tucson High and Babbitt Creary have the buys. So anything you're looking at this week?
Well, with that Sahuarita Safford game, linebacker last week for Sahuarita, Michael Moleo, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Moleo, had 20 tackles, 4 for lost yardage, and 5 quarterback hurries. And I know he's one of the better tacklers in Southern Arizona. Sahuarita doesn't get a lot of mention, but they are 3-2. You know, Sabino's coming out of that area, so it'll be interesting to see how down the road they fare against the Sahuaritas and the Saffords. I think Sabino will go on that run again like they did last year.
One of the biggest mistakes I've ever been, have you been to Sahuarita Field? I don't know, they have artificial turf, but they also have this bell. This bell they hit. And one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made in the years I've been covering high school sports was to stand next to it when they hit it. And my head hurt for a couple of weeks. But also, we touched on Will Parker signing, or committing. Evan Nelson, basketball player at South Point, committing to Harvard, another smart kid. You know, Harvard degree. I mean, come on. And then Bryce Cotton, former Palo Verde basketball player, was ESPN voted him the top player in the Australian League. So, you know, there's lots of kids still doing great out there after they're done with Tucson, and we like to keep track on them and what they're doing. But you know, obviously this isn't going to be over during football season. We're going to be talking about basketball in the wintertime and wrestling, and then baseball, softball, and everything else that comes with that in the spring. But is there anything else you want to touch on before we sign off? And
You know, going back to Evan Nelson signing with Harvard, well, committing to Harvard. I got the privilege to see him play last year against Amphi at South Point, and he just stands out to you. I mean, he's such a great guard when we're tossing a football here to a little kid, and he caught it. So going back to that game, he was playing against Jackson Ruai, and he just dominated the court. And one thing that sticks out to me about him is, you know, you talk about a shooting point guard. He's such a great distributor of the ball, and I think that's one of his, I'm not going to say overlooked part of his game, one of the overlooked part of his game. So it was a pleasure seeing him in that game. I can't wait for high school basketball.
One thing we need to touch on too, Santa Rita's could get their third win. They could be 3-3 because they're playing Tonopah Valley, I believe it is, and they're like 1-4, 1-5. So it'd be great for Richard Sanchez to be 3-3 in his second year. You know, he's just a great coach. I've known of him and talked to him being in Sunnyside, and for them to be 3-3 after just a miserable year last year, that's something to look forward to tomorrow night when they play.
Cool. So for Troy Hudson, Javier Morales, I'm Andy Morales, signing out from allsportstucson.com. And we're at Wings Over Broadway at Camino Seco, and All Sports Tucson preview show. Thank you.
Ready to take over?